Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Some people collect trophies, others collect chaos. Today in the rLounge, OP's ex apparently decided to do both, rushing into a new marriage, dodging her kids, and letting her sister run the show. Sister-in-law called me a bad father in front of my kids. Wife said she didn't mean it, so I divorced her. I've been married to my wife for 12 years. We have 2 kids, a 10-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. My relationship with my in-laws has been decent over the years. My father-in-law is a quiet man who mostly keeps to himself. My mother-in-law is friendly enough, though she tends to defer to her daughters on most matters. The real problem has always been my sister-in-law. From day one, my sister-in-law has been critical of me. She's 3 years older than my wife and has strong opinions about everything, especially how children should be raised. Despite not having any kids herself, she's made it clear that this is by choice, which I completely respect. What I don't respect is how she uses this as some kind of moral high ground to judge my parenting. "I've chosen not to have kids because I know how much work it takes to raise them properly," she said, with that look. My wife's typical response? "That's just how she is." She shrugged it off like her sister calling me an incompetent father was as meaningless as commenting on the weather. I accepted this dynamic for too long, thinking it was just part of being a family. Everything came to a head at my father-in-law's birthday celebration. The whole family gathered at my in-laws' house. The kids were excited, running around with their cousins. My son, being a typical energetic 10-year-old, accidentally knocked over and broke a decorative plate while playing. I immediately went over to him. He looked terrified, expecting to be yelled at. Instead, I calmly told him that accidents happen, but he needed to be more careful indoors, especially in someone else's home. I asked him to apologize to his grandparents, which he did. The situation was handled, or so I thought. That's when my sister-in-law decided to insert herself. "This is exactly the problem with your parenting. You're such a pathetic excuse for a father. You can't even control your wild animals. No wonder they have no respect for other people's property." The room went silent. My son's face crumbled. My daughter, who had been happily playing nearby, started crying. The worst part wasn't even my sister-in-law's words. It was the fact that my wife just stood there, saying nothing. I looked at her, waiting for her to defend me, to defend our children, who had just been called wild animals. But she avoided my gaze, suddenly very interested in arranging the gifts on the table. I managed to keep my cool for the sake of the kids and my father-in-law's birthday. I comforted my children, assured them they weren't wild animals, and tried to salvage what was left of the celebration. But inside, I was seething. On the drive home, with the kids asleep in the back seat, I asked my wife if she was going to address her sister's attack on me and the kids. She sighed, saying her sister didn't mean it that way and was just stressed. I pointed out that her sister called our children wild animals and me a pathetic excuse for a father in front of everyone, asking how I was supposed to take it. My wife said I was overreacting, that it was not a big deal, and her sister was probably tired from planning Dad's party for weeks. I was stunned and asked how it wasn't a big deal when our son looked crushed and our daughter was crying. She said I was too sensitive, that families sometimes say things they don't mean. The argument continued when we got home. I pointed out that this wasn't an isolated incident, that her sister had been disrespecting me for years, and that her silence made her complicit. She accused me of trying to drive a wedge between her and her family. The next morning, I noticed my son was unusually quiet. When I asked him what was wrong, he just shrugged. Later, I overheard my daughter asking my wife if I was a bad daddy, like Aunt said. My heart broke. I tried to talk to my wife again. I explained that this wasn't about me being sensitive. It was about our children hearing their father being denigrated and their mother saying nothing to counter it. I told her I expected an apology from her sister, and more importantly, I expected my wife to back me up. She said I should let go of her sister's comments. "Family peace is more important than your pride. Making a big deal out of this will cause more problems." I said it wasn't just about pride but respect, and our kids needed to know no one should talk to their father or them like that. She shook her head, called it a small issue, and told me to drop it. But I couldn't drop it. A few days later, I texted my sister-in-law directly, telling her that her comments at the party were unacceptable and that I expected an apology, not just to me but to my children who were hurt by her words. Her response? "I was just being honest. Someone needs to tell you the truth about your parenting. If you can't handle criticism, that's your problem." That evening, I came home early and found my wife texting on the couch. She quickly put her phone down when she saw me, but not before I caught a glimpse of her screen. She was texting her sister, and I saw the words, "being ridiculous," in reference to me. I confronted her about it, and after some back and forth, She admitted that she thought I was partially at fault for being too lenient with the kids. She said she sometimes agreed with her sister that I needed to be stricter, but I hadn't said anything to avoid conflict. I moved into the guest room permanently after that. I started documenting everything, every interaction with my wife, every comment about the kids, every text message. I consulted with a divorce attorney without telling her, and I opened a separate bank account and started directing a portion of my income there. She noticed the distance but seemed to think I'd get over it eventually. She made no effort to address the actual issue. Instead, she acted like I was having some kind of tantrum that would eventually pass. About a week later, my in-laws called me. They demanded I stop this nonsense and fix things with my wife. My father-in-law even suggested I should apologize to my sister-in-law to keep the peace. I asked my wife what keeping the peace would cost, my self-respect or our kids' respect for me, and said no thanks. Her family was shocked. No one had ever stood up to them before, and my wife never had. That night, she saw a charge from a divorce attorney on her credit card statement and confronted me, yelling if I was really considering divorce over this, accused me of destroying our family over nothing. I calmly said it wasn't nothing, but about respect and partnership, and her choosing her sister's right to insult me over my right to basic decency. She called me dramatic, saying families sometimes say things they don't mean. I asked why her sister wouldn't apologize if she didn't mean it, and why an apology was so hard. She had no answer for that. The next day, I officially filed for divorce. When I told my wife, she finally seemed to understand that I was serious. Suddenly, she was willing to make her sister apologize. Suddenly, she was willing to stand up for her family, but it was too little too late. She broke down crying, saying she never thought it would come to this. She accused me of not giving her a chance to fix things, but she'd had 12 years of chances, 12 years of opportunities to be my partner, to stand with me against anyone who disrespected her family, including her own sister. She moved out the next day, going to stay with her parents. We agreed on a temporary custody arrangement until the divorce was finalized. The kids would stay with me in the family home most of the time, with her taking them every other weekend and for dinner twice a week. Telling the kids was the hardest part. When the divorce papers were served, reality finally seemed to hit her. She called me, sobbing, asking if we could talk. I agreed to meet at a neutral location without the kids. She came prepared with all of the things she thought I wanted to hear. She'd talked to her sister, who was now willing to apologize. She promised to stand up to her family in the future. She said she understood now how hurtful her silence had been. But as she spoke, all I could think was, why did it take filing for divorce to get here? Why wasn't our marriage worth this effort before? Why weren't our children's feelings worth defending until now? She accused me of being unforgiving, of holding a grudge. The divorce proceeded. We established a more formal custody agreement. I requested that my sister-in-law not be present during my wife's time with the children, giving her history of speaking negatively about me in front of them. My wife fought this initially, but eventually agreed when I provided evidence of the impact her sister's words had on our kids. My son began to open up more in therapy. He admitted that his aunt had made similar comments about me before, though never as directly as at the birthday party. He said he'd always felt confused because his mom never contradicted her. My daughter took longer to adjust, but eventually began to understand the divorce wasn't her fault or her brother's. She still had moments of sadness, asking when we would all live together again, but she was resilient. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. The terms were fair: 50-50 custody, child support based on our income differences, and a clean split of assets. My ex-wife seemed shocked that it was really happening, as if she'd been expecting me to change my mind up until the last minute. About a month after the divorce was finalized, my son came home from a weekend at his mom's, visibly upset. When I asked what was wrong, he hesitated before admitting that his aunt had been there and had said some not nice things about me. I asked him what specifically she had said, and he reluctantly told me she had called me selfish and said I didn't really love them or I wouldn't have abandoned the family. She had also told him that I was teaching them all the wrong things about being a man and that he should learn from his uncle instead. I was furious, but kept my composure for my son's sake. I assured him that I loved him and his sister more than anything, and that the divorce wasn't about abandoning anyone. That evening, I emailed my lawyer about modifying our temporary custody agreement to prevent my sister-in-law from being around the children during my ex's parenting time. I included my son's account of what happened and reminded her of the original incident that led to our separation. My ex-wife called me the next day, angry about my interference. She accused me of turning the children against her family and making a big deal out of normal family conversations. The court granted my request for a temporary order preventing my sister-in-law from being present during my ex's parenting time without another adult present as a supervisor. My ex was furious, but couldn't argue against the evidence of the harmful impact her sister's comments were having on our children. My ex still doesn't fully understand why I'm going through with this. In her mind, this is all an overreaction to a single comment. She doesn't see, or refuses to see, the pattern of disrespect that has been there all along. She doesn't understand that by allowing her sister to demean me in front of our children, she was teaching them that it's okay to treat people that way. This isn't the ending I wanted for our story. It blows my mind that it took divorce papers for her to suddenly care. 12 years of letting her sister insult you, undermine your parenting, and confuse your kids, and she's acting like you're the problem for finally standing up for yourself? Unbelievable. You weren't dramatic or overreacting. You were protecting your kids and your own self-respect. And honestly, her "I just wanted peace" excuse is garbage. Peace doesn't come from letting your own kids see their dad treated like garbage. Update 2. It's been 6 months since my last update, and almost a year since my original post. The divorce is finalized, custody arrangements are settled, and we've all been adjusting to our new normal. I want to thank everyone who's followed my journey and offered support and advice along the way. The divorce was finalized in March as scheduled. The judge awarded us 50-50 custody with the stipulation that my sister-in-law cannot be present during my ex-wife's time with the children unless another adult is present. My ex fought this condition hard, but ultimately lost when the children's therapist testified about the negative impact sister-in-law's comments had on the kids' emotional well-being. My ex-wife remarried just 2 months after our divorce was finalized. She met a wealthy older man, 15 years her senior, during the divorce proceedings. Apparently he was a business associate of her divorce attorney. The wedding was small and hastily arranged. She didn't even tell the kids until a week before the ceremony. What's more concerning is that she's begun missing scheduled visitations with the children. In the past 3 months, she's canceled or shortened her time with them on 7 different occasions. The reasons vary: business trips with her new husband, spa weekends, social events that aren't kid-friendly. Each time I get a last-minute text asking if I can cover for her. I always do because I want the kids to have stability, but it's frustrating to see her prioritizing her new life over our children. The kids have definitely noticed the pattern. Last month, my son asked why mom keeps forgetting about their weekends together. My daughter cried when her mother canceled their planned shopping trip for the 3rd time. Their therapist says they're showing signs of feeling abandoned by their mother, which breaks my heart. I'm doing everything I can to reassure them that they're loved and valued, but I can't make up for their mother's choices. In early September, I received legal documents from my ex requesting reduced child support payments. Her reasoning? Her new husband's wealth means she doesn't need the money anymore. Simultaneously, she filed for increased visitation rights, claiming she wants more time with the children. This contradiction didn't make sense until my lawyer pointed out that in our state, child support calculations are partially based on the number of overnight stays with each parent. She was trying to reduce her financial responsibility while maintaining the appearance of being an involved mother. The court denied both modifications. The judge noted her inconsistent record of using her existing visitation time and pointed out that her new husband's income doesn't relieve her of her financial responsibility to her children. She was furious about this ruling. Meanwhile, my ex's new marriage seems to be showing signs of strain. Her new husband is becoming uncomfortable with the constant family drama, particularly sister-in-law's constant presence in their lives. Apparently, sister-in-law has been spending a lot of time at their home, offering support to my ex and criticizing me to anyone who will listen. The new husband, who has adult children of his own, reportedly finds sister-in-law's involvement excessive and inappropriate. By early November, my ex-wife's new life began showing serious cracks. Her new husband filed for annulment, citing fraud and misrepresentation. I don't know the specific details, but rumors suggest he discovered financial issues she hadn't disclosed before the marriage. Within days of his filing, she was facing eviction from the luxury apartment they'd been renting together. Suddenly, she was demanding to reconnect with the children and wanted to exercise every minute of her court-ordered visitation time. The timing made her intentions transparent. She needed somewhere to stay and financial support now that her new marriage was falling apart. I maintained the established schedule but refused her request for additional time or financial assistance beyond the court-ordered child support. My relationship with my in-laws remains strained. They still believe I overreacted to the original incident and blamed me for breaking up the family. However, they've become more respectful in their interactions with me, likely realizing that antagonizing me could further limit their access to their grandchildren. We maintain a civil relationship for the kids' sake. Sister-in-law remains the most hostile family member. She continues to make occasional snide comments about me on social media, though she's careful not to violate the court order by speaking negatively about me to the children. I've heard that she's furious about my ex's new boundaries and blames me for turning her sister against her. I find it telling that she can't recognize her own role in creating the situation. Last week, we had our court hearing regarding my ex's request to modify the custody arrangement for her convenience. The judge denied her request, citing the children's need for consistency and routine. The future remains uncertain in many ways. Thank you all for your support. I may not post again. Your ex rushes into a new marriage, bails on the kids, tries to dodge support, and then comes crawling back when her life blows up. Predictable. You've been the constant, keeping the kids grounded while she treats parenthood like a part-time hobby. Sister-in-law is still a nightmare, but at least the courts and your boundaries are finally keeping her in check. Has anyone else dealt with a family member undermining you or your parenting? How did you handle it? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.